some of the wells are highlighted here, just to show what we have been looking at. And a number of the depths didn't hit bedrock, so some of the wells recorded as over 350 or over 250 feet. They didn't, we couldn't say that they hit bedrock. We did do this resistivity geophysics test along the street, and on the west end of the property, it had a high spot where the ground was estimated to be about 200 feet deep. But about 2/3 along the section toward the east side of the property, there's actually a dip where it's over 500 feet deep. So it's a little bit variable. And we were at first concerned that putting a well on the west side of the property may not reach over 200 feet deep. The existing well is there. We test pumped that well, which is what I want to show you. So that well in and of itself is almost 500 feet deep. So there's a drop off in that corner of the site, which is a challenging geologic feature, which is why we then plotted a whole series of wells to get a better handle, and that created this contour map. By looking at a number of wells, we're able to create this range in contour. So while it is roughly 200 feet deep on the northwest corner of the property, it's generally 400 feet deep in the area, and as we go east on the property, it's over 500 feet deep. And when you move some distance away, there are wells that are 600 plus feet deep. So basically, there's sufficient recharge to serve the wells that we're proposing to construct. The well that we tested was at the west edge of the property, and I didn't even know if we would be able to run it, but basically, Edison went out and take it to the property, I'll operate the well. Then I ran 1,281 GPM. It was an excellent producing well. The static water level, as we expected, was 175. The drawdown for that well was just over 50 feet. And so the specific capacity was about 24 gallons per minute per foot of drawdown, which is actually a very good well. So we were pleased to see those very favorable results. So we assumed if it pumped continuously for more than just a couple hours, that it would level off at something less than 1200 GPM, but still over 1,000 GPM in our opinion. So with that, we were optimistic about wells in the area being very reasonable producers. So we're proposing that there's 3 wells. Well, number 1 to the east that we expect to be in that dip that's a little over 500 feet, be able to produce 1,100 GPM. Well, number 2 near the irrigation, near the agricultural well that we will abandon, is we're using a monitoring well. We would expect to be closer to 1,000 GPM, and we've moved almost a mile west on the existing property, and I'll show that in a moment. And we have a 3rd well proposed that's also 1,100 GPM. We bring up the 2nd well with a 12-inch. When the 2 wells connect, we then run a 16-inch pipe over to your existing site, which is called the 80th and H site. At 80th and H, there's a turnout in the chlorine building. And since you already have a chlorine facility there for serving SNP full 48-inch diameter pipeline, we can put in a smaller pump skid. We can use the same chlorine tanks, chlorine building, to then deliver chlorine to these 3 wells. And so what we'll do is we'll inject chlorine, we'll have a static mixer, we'll have a chlorine analyzer, and then it'll go into the turnout. And that turnout serves Elliott County Waterworks. So I have a close-up on the west side of the site that shows the existing facilities, which is this diagram. So it's basically some drawings on top of existing plans. And so what we plan to do is bring the pipeline right through the middle of the site, bring it over in front of the chlorine building, and then tie it into a pipeline that will allow us to tie it directly into the upstream of the turnout. So that's the proposed plan, and it takes advantage of existing facilities. You have historically owned this property, which is sort of the left half of this figure, but recently you purchased 2 acres, which is the right half of this figure, for a proposed pump station, which we call a dual low-head, high-head pump station for the SNP pipeline, to pump water from WSSP2. So what you see on the right is a design layout that's not been constructed yet. It's still in design. So the left half is actual facilities. The right half is a proposed design. We're coming sort of right up in the middle, if you will. So that's our plan. Any questions? A simple process that's included in scope of work. And then the first part of engineering, which is now design and bid assistance, and we come back to another in the future as we award contracts for construction management. And those costs are included in this $5.8 million estimate. If you take that estimate and you just amortize it over 20 years at 5%, without a fracking cost, that is a sunk cost, you're about $500,000 a year last slide is a schedule, because we wanted these wells to be in service by next summer. This is an incredibly fast-track design. If you're working tonight, we'll start tomorrow. We'll talk to the surveyor, we'll talk to the geotech, we'll talk to our partner, and we see the person that's going to take the lead who's already started the new project description today. We're ready to go. We can do this within a couple months. We're going to be out for bids quickly.
Authorize design and pipeline wells for $346,000. Yes, Randy.
Let me ask a question. Randy Scott from Rosemont. I'm sorry, I missed the previous discussions on this, but I'm just kind of curious. The source of the water is not banking. It's just drilling and pulling water out. Right?
That's correct.
So has there been some previous history of water being pulled out at that rate from that land? I mean, how do we know how much can be pulled out without it making an impact?
That's one of the goals of the secret document.
Okay. And AVEK is authorized to just purchase land and go start digging holes, wells, and pulling water?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, in the AVEK's Act it is,
Right.
number one. And number two, until the groundwater adjudication is finalized, there's no ramp in. And so, and also three, for emergency purposes, if we don't get any water because their Lord upstairs says we're not gonna rain, we're gonna have to do something. So we're gonna pull water from every aspect we can get our hands on.
Oh, I'm not suggesting it's a bad idea. I'm just kind of curious about how this is going to work relative to how water. You know, generally we've been talking to other properties of how much has been pulled out in the past, and as long as not more than that's been pulled out, that's probably appropriate and so on. I just didn't know what the history was behind it.
Well, the other thing is, see, when the adjudication is finalized, the transferability of water, the water could be somewhere else, and we can pull it out of these areas. That's part of the finalization of the adjudication.
Right.
And we'd only take as much that would not deplete or cause harm to the area. So again, until we do the reports, we're not going to know exactly, but this is an estimate we're looking at.
Is there any history on this to know that that would be an appropriate
Well,
number
it was-
before you spend all the
It
money?
was agriculture. We
Okay.
went back through 40 years of aerial photographs, which are in the face owner report. And it's green, up until the early 2000s. And then it's turned into this horse ranch, where now it's not watered to the level that it used to be.
Because if there was a history that said 4,500 acre feet a year is probably not more than has been pulled out before, that's fine. But if you find out it's, I pick a number, 500, then that would be potentially a major impact, and maybe this would be not a thing advisable to do. I mean, is there any history that's known as far as how much has been pulled out?
We looked at the water levels over the last 80 years, and they went from 30 feet to 250 back to 175. So it's being pumped less now than it was 20 years ago. There was recovery, if you will, from overpumping, which was done several decades ago. So there's significantly
You
less
have records, you go back how far of this well in this area?
There are water level records for decades.
When you go back a decade,
Are there any pumping records that show how much has been pulled out?
There's not good pumping records for water level. You can anecdotally look at what's green because the water came from.
Dr. Ferguson, do we have satellite photos showing that the property gives real crops?
Yes, we have those in the phase one report, which we showed last year. All the years and decades of green use, that is, it was heavily irrigated. So that is part of the basis of this proposal, is that it has been historically pumped.
I kind of like to follow up on that. I mean, I'm not saying it needs the program either, but 210 an acre foot is based upon us pumping that amount every year. And with the adjudication and with emergency basis and whether it's transferability and all that stuff, that number probably doubles or quadruples because we may only be pulling, half that out or quarter of that out depending upon how
Fixed
things go.
costs, you have to pump to get that
Get that,
operating
so,
cost.
so that cost of the 210 is probably closer to 350 or so.
AVEK is being the administrator, so that's what the present draft stipulations.
Okay, so take away that whole thing. I got a question for staff. You as a arena manager and staff. We're gonna be having a full-blown water bank here on the east side. We're not finished with the first one here. Are we gonna be hiring more people to man that at all?
I think you're gonna have a more complicated operation, the agency just by itself, Does that justify the complete addition we're talking about? Probably not. We do need more lab space, we do need more office space, but it's been kind of a balance that we've been working through the committee to try to figure out how big the building might be and so forth. So it's a little bit of a judgment call, what do we see the agency's role in the future?
Well, let's put it this way. If we would have built the building 10 years ago, it would have been 60% less. So you know what, if you don't want to build the building today, and you're talking, I know for a fact this valley will grow, whether we like it or not. We yank out lawns, whatever, but people are going to live, people are going to move, and we're not going to have a better opportunity, expense-wise, to build any kind of building today, square footage-wise, compared to 10 years ago. So, that's what we have to look at. We have, if that was the case, the fathers before, the planners of this agency, why did they build this thing? They should just rented a place down in Lancaster Boulevard.
We did.
Yeah, but what happened after that? Why they build this? Thank you.
Yeah, but still, part of my point is, we're building a new building, and I don't know what's happening in water projects. I've asked several times, well, how is this going to be reorganized? What's the boardroom going to become? What's the lab going to become? There's office space, there's additional spaces in this building, and do we need additional offices and other things that are in there? I mean, to me, we're building a building in just total absence of this building.
I thought we had authorized a study of the
Yeah, we
use
did.
of this building.
We saw it. You liked it.
It really, I didn't see really anything, but, so everybody saw what's happening to the lab, what's the lab become?
We had done a preliminary plan of this building showing once the lab was out, converted to office space.
Okay, so then it's up to staff, I guess, what's going into that office space?
The banking facility, we looked at two different sizes, and we're going to bid 40-inch and 44-inch. We're also going to phase it in, so that first recharge pipeline, we have phase one that needs to be complete by May 1st. The transmission pipeline is going to go through the tank, to the treatment plant a couple of months later. So trying to make it such that we have a pipeline that's going to be in place to be able to take the water that's going to be pumped out of the wells, at least two of them, and get it into the aqueduct. The situation is such that we need water into the aqueduct. So that's one of the projects. The 96 feet east turnout is worked right on the aqueduct. And while there's a turnout there already, we're just coming off the same slot in the aqueduct, and we're putting a whole new meter facility in the pipeline that gets out to the county right of way. Those are the 96 feet east turnout plans had to be approved by EWR, that was all in the right of way. But we are planning to get the two projects together, even though they have separate cover sheets on it. We think lately on these turnout projects and EWR right of way, we struggle to get 2 or 3 bids. Don't get a lot of activity, they're pretty small. We think that we might get a better price and get more activity if we bid the two projects together. So that's our plan, to combine those, even though they're separate set of plans, we can still put it together. And on the left side, we're looking at coming off the aqueduct. The crosshatch area is the banking property. And then as you go from left to right, you see on Avenue U, we've got a transmission pipeline that goes over to the east side water treatment plant. So that's the pipeline project that we're talking about. Again, 2 different phases. The first phase is from the aqueduct to banking. The second phase is going to expand to the treatment plants. And then this slide. So this is just to blow up the turnout part, a little complicated to see. Basically, it shows you not creating a new slot. And after that, you're just taking the existing pipeline, putting another connection to it. So we'll have to make some arrangements with Henry, we're trying to take the water, we have to work out something like that. But it's set up so we have separate meters, so we could even share and take water at the same time. We have some limitations. That's the two projects that we want to go out to bid on. So we recommend the board.
3, 6, 7, and 9, and possibly the 2 more wells at the Calamity property if they're not in this current scope. We're just identified as potential wells that could be added in the future at your discretion. So the plan is to start in October and basically do about a well a month through March. And we're currently pumping the well, so in a month or two we'll shut off the first one. We need the water a little bit less. So we estimated about $40,000 per well site. And I'll go through what the repair and maintenance work is proposed to be. And the engineering fee that I'll show you as well is just under $50,000, so that the total budget is about $250,000 for these 5 wells and 1 rehab. So it's more valuable and actually slightly higher in production for next year. So to go through each of the 5, RG2 is the current well that 75 horsepower. It was last tested by SCE in 2007, pumped about 650 GPM with a relatively low efficiency. It has a relatively low specific capacity, so as we rehab it, we might be able to recover some of the lost specific capacity. We'll probably add, with staff's concurrence, a new well pump panel, because the electrical in this photo is fairly old, as you can see. Some have been replaced and some haven't. RG3 is currently sitting under a power line that's going to be moved next month so that the well can be rehabbed, because right now it can't be pulled because the well can't be drilled, can't get its rig underneath the power line. And so this well was previously targeted for replacement as a new well pump panel, as you can see in the picture. We will assist you in getting this well rehabbed. It was also Edison tested in 2008, pumped 900 GPM and had very good specific capacity. So relatively good efficiency. So we're looking forward to getting this well back in service because it's not online right now. RG6 has been plumbed and this is newer pipe, but not newer well, if you will. Again, decent production well. We don't have an MC test. We do have a well one. RG7, you can see the building is in disrepair. It's an old well site. It's been plumbed into the system, but we need some site improvements. Needs a new well, pump panel, as well as to be rehabbed. We don't have an acid test or a well one.
I got a question. Can we get LEED certification in that building?
Let's get satellites.
It's solar.
Spend $30,000 to do it.
The 5th one that's currently bumping through new discharge piping is has an acid test of 2008, where it was pumping about 1,200 GPM. We believe that was the number. We have the well log as well. It's 150 horsepower pump. The plan here is to pull the motors and send them in, have them checked, potentially they dipped and wrapped, which we do with gold motors, and put them back, because they tend to continue to run forever. So, but we're planning to replace the well pumps on every one of these and look at the column and shaft and potentially lower some. So we're doing that evaluation and looking at the security and the side of the electrical panels. So there's a variety of components that we'll be doing each well. So basically then, we'll do site visits, we'll evaluate the data that's available to us, and when they go in and they'll pull these pumps, they'll bail out the oil that's used in irrigation wells that tends to sit on top of the water surface. They'll then video log the wells, and we expect to mechanically swab and airlift and clean the wells, and we'll re-video log the wells to see if there's anything, any damage that to the wells, casing that wasn't visible, well, casing the screen that wasn't visible before it was cleaned, make sure we didn't damage it, see how effective the cleaning was. Then we'll do the electrical improvements on some of the wells. We'll do wellhead improvements as necessary, but there'll be new pumps and potentially new column line shaft for some to a limited extent. And then it'll be reinstalled and started, so it's not other wells that will be re-disinfected and passed back.
source is at 44%. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our plan. We've been doing some work staff-wise to plan for 2015. I'll give you some highlights on that. This is the reservoir conditions. Again, Oroville 48%, San Luis 44%. And here again is an update of the 8-station index, and pretty flat line headed for October 1st, which is the start of the water use. This is the Oroville storage. The blue line is actual storage. Again, it's going to be below what it has been, and quite a bit below where we started last year. And here is San Luis. Again, kind of flattened out a little bit, but still very low. Plan for 2015. We've done quite a bit of discussion in-house. The board wanted to know what our plan was for 2015. We evaluated all our existing assets, how we were doing this year. We looked at additional assets, what we could put online by next year if next year is dry. Right now, if we had a 15% allocation from the state water project, we could meet anticipated needs with the existing facilities we have in place, our existing capability. So that's good news. We're hoping we get more than 15% from the state. But if we don't get 15%, or if our demands are higher than we anticipate, or if the approval comes really late, which is likely, they'll drag it out, they'll do it December. They do the first one on December 1st, which is likely to be very low because it's based on water and storage in a historical average in hydrology. So if they give us, like they did this year, they give it to us really late, we're going to have additional assets online. So we identified three levels of effort. Level 1 is reasonable price and schedule. We can get our hands on in a reasonable time by June, July, August of next year, and it would be something that would be a reasonable price. If we looked at all of those assets that we have available, we could probably develop, and again, this is preliminary, but about 18,900 acre feet. That would be made up of pump in, that would be getting our east side project rolling, our existing ag wells we would utilize. We did some UBA purchases this year, and it will be more expensive next year, but it's still a little bit of water we would get a little water from Little Rock. Of course, if the allocation is 5%, you don't get a whole lot of water on that, and then conservation. So this is kind of what we identified as reasonable things we could get our hands on for a reasonable price in the time frame we need it. And so that's an encouraging number, 18,000, that we could do on top of what we're doing today.
And then we may be able to add one well from the bench range.
In fact, that's yes, and we were trying to make conservative estimates, but we included bench ranch in level 2. It's obtainable, but it might be a little more expensive. And this is level 2. Again, we can get our hands on it. It's going to be a little more difficult. We got to have to press, to get these. But that's another 17,500 acre feet. That would be if we purchase groundwater from other local entities, if we made some modifications to our existing system. We brought additional local ag wells online. We made purchases on the state water project system. And if we had additional extraction capability, which would be the bench range. So we went through each one of these and kind of made a conservative estimate of how much we would get. So these level 2 efforts would be another 17,500. We sat down, conference room, and laid everything out. We could do this, we could do this, and then we kind of categorized them. So the treatment of the wells would be kind of category 3. Yeah, it's kind of a last resort.
Randy, just a quick question. What is lower bowls on existing wells?
Well, I don't know. I'll let Mike.
Probably John's best, but I think, the pump has a number of bowls that lift that water successfully up the column. I think Charlie knows about this too. You can lower those bowls further into the pump column in order to essentially get into the water table, lower the water table.
Take it well deeper.
Not a simple thing. You got to take the well out of service for a period of time. We've got one candidate for a really well EW16 that is our best producer, and we're hesitant to mess with. We really are. So that's why it's kind of a level 3 item.
And it's
not
only,
low hanging fruit.
we only have 1,000 acre feet.
Let me ask a question. On the wells that are really good, they have really low arsenic. Let's say the ones you're talking about, you said higher, not high, but higher. What's higher? 15 parts per billion, 12 parts per billion? And we know that the levels 10 is where the loss.
Yeah.
Huh?
We've got a well that's a raw water well that's about 30 out there. We've got another well that's between 15 and 18. We've got another one that if you were able to pump it harder, it'd probably be around 12.
Okay, so you think that the 16, 18, and the 12, if you blend it to our wells that are at 3 parts or 4 parts, that could potentially bring those arsenic levels down, right?
Right, and we already are blending. This is going over and above. This is turning them up and not, essentially getting more flow out of those wells. And using other ones that, when you have an arsenic well of 30, or arsenic level of 30, it's very difficult to use that well. I mean, it's just, even if it is a, 1200 GPM or something like that.
That's the one that was pumping into the test pond out there.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, Randy?
I was just curious, given that kind of a situation, most likely the state would have declared an emergency again, and so would AVEK and so on and so forth. Is there any provisions in declaring those emergencies for somehow going above some of those levels, in public safety? If you're weighing public safety about providing water, but maybe the arsenic is above a certain number by a slight amount, is there any provision in any of that stuff for doing those?
Some things you have flexibility on, some things you don't.
Okay.
We have to kind of get a waiver from the CZTA, which they probably wouldn't do it, but
No.
we can certainly try.
You would end up having to do notification. I mean, they wouldn't come shut you down. You would have to notify that you exceeded an MCL, which, if it's the difference between that and not having
no
water.
water or something
Absolutely.
like that, yeah. So,
You joke about it can't get much worse. Well, it can't get much worse because they gave us nothing for several months, and then they finally gave us 5%. So basically, we've been able to get by this year because we brought assets on. We have the existing capability. We add those level 1 effort. Even if we get anything from the state, we get pretty close.
Do we have a question?
Yeah, at 100%, what is your state water contract supply?
144,844.
Thank you.
That's the contracted amount.
Correct. Your CAW.
Ballpark of the additional cost per acre foot for each one of those options that you're looking at? I know I'm putting you on the spot. If you don't have that.
We kind of evaluated that. We kind of, and this is, again, preliminary. We felt like with the budget that we put together for next year, that we could do level 1 things within our budget. Level 2 things, we're gonna have to talk about surcharges or additional costs or some other kind of program where maybe our customers want to participate. Maybe they say, well, we'll get by or we'll reduce, or I mean, again, we're kind of at the conceptual stage. We just wanted to put a plan together, but that's kind of the threshold we have. The 80th and H and the ag wells are going into West Feeder and coming north. State Water Project, Bay Delta Conservation Plan. The comment period was up. They've gotten some comments, and they're going to partially redistribute the plan. They did. You may have seen the news that EPA had a 43-page letter they submitted to NIMS that has some concerns that they're going to have to address in the plan. So it's still a work in progress. I mentioned the rebill for the 2015 statement of charges. We got a statement of charges that took a jump, and they're working on a rebill, trying to refine those numbers and sharpen their pencil, and we should be getting that in, by November. We have had some cash flow issues on the state water project. I've mentioned these. It's a lot of cultural and business practices. I've had several meetings, met with the Director of Water Resources on Friday to talk about those. I think they're on the right track. It's just gonna take a little bit to get them to where they can develop a budget, manage through the budget, and have a audible trail. Palmdale connection is a 1 MGD. We're continuing to pump about 7 acre-feet in at 96th Street East, and WSSP2 going to 80th and H is 15.5. And again, the ag wells medium current. John, any other operational? Water quality, we did get our THM results from the August tests, and the current locational running annual averages are listed here. Still in very good shape. Our goal is 64. So, the Vincent tank is probably the one that we're watching the closest, but again, THM levels are in pretty good shape, considering everything this year. Status and update. You've heard that the water bond is on the ballot, and there has been some groundwater legislation. This is a pretty big deal. It's really about sustainability. I do have a copy of the legislation if you'd like to breeze through it, but it won't have. It's not likely to have direct impact on AVEK because we're in an adjudication process. Fremont Valley and so forth, areas that are still in our service area that are not in the adjudication. This is probably a good thing because it's established. You have to establish a local agency to identify sustainability. There's a lot more state involvement in local basins. So there's pluses and minuses, and there's supporters and detractors on this. I don't think the governor has